What if you could create your own ChatGPT without coding, or your own technology solution for that matter? Thanks to low or no-code development platforms, this is possible. Low-code or no-code development platforms are exactly what they say they are. Tools that allow people who have little to no knowledge of coding or have no time for it to create their own applications. And that's how the citizen developer is born. Empowering people within a business to become citizen developers and create their own solutions is key for innovation. However, the low-code tools and templates themselves are built on actual coding languages. So in case you are wondering who's creating them, the answer is software companies such as Microsoft. In today's episode, we are excited to welcome Davy De Roeck, a senior technical specialist in business applications and low-code at Microsoft Benelux, and Xavier Lisoir, Managing Director in Emerging Technology at PwC Luxembourg and also a Tech Talk veteran. Together, we discuss the emergence of low-code, its evolution over the past years, and the lessons learned so far from its adoption. We also explore the capabilities of these tools and the impact of emerging technologies like ChatGPT and Bing Chat. I'm your host, Christopher Rosa, and this is Tech Talk, technology made simple over a cup of coffee. So, grab your favorite beverage, buckle up, and let's dive right into it.
Welcome to a new episode of Tech Talk. Today we are deep diving into an emerging tech, which is low code and the rise of the citizen developer.
Indeed, a fascinating topic today, and we have two fantastic guests with us, Xavier and Davy. Welcome.
Welcome.
Welcome. Thanks.
So, maybe to kick things off, can you tell us a bit more about yourself and why are you there today? Xavier, if you want to start.
Yes, so I'm Xavier Lisoir, Director in the Advisory Practice of PwC. I've been there for a while, as LinkedIn kindly reminded me recently. I'm currently in charge of the emerging tech team, which includes, among other things, architecture, integration, and automation, which will relate to the topic that we are going to discuss today. I've always been passionate about technology and how we can make the life of user easier, and I think it directly relates to the benefit of the low-code and the reason why low-code is getting popular.
And that's why you are a Tech Talk veteran, I would say. It's what, your third time, fourth time?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, it's great to have you back. Over to you, David. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, of course. So my name is Davy De Roeck. I work with Microsoft. I work and live in Belgium, and I work as a senior Microsoft technology specialist towards the Benelux area for all industries. And with Microsoft, I'm completely working around the whole Power Platform or the low-code and no-code journey. So that's why I'm here to bring a little bit the Microsoft voice as well, my experience. The experience that I have is more than 50 years working in Microsoft business applications. And especially the last 5 years, I was working for, let's say, almost each day in the Microsoft Power Platform tech space. Now 2 years at Microsoft here as a role with a technology specialist. And before I was working on 2 years with a customer or at a customer side. And I was responsible for a large transformation from manufacturing shop floor automation to the low-code and no-code space. So I also have the experience from the field that I can bring here in.
Quite an... Go ahead, Chris.
Great to have you with us. So fresh to Tech Talk, but definitely a lot of experience on the topic.
Yes.
So good to have you with us.
Well, Xavier, let's start with how it all started with low code. What's the history of low code, no code? What was it used for in the beginning? What were the use cases back then?
There's no single point of history that we can trace back, being yes, that's the genesis of the low code, but that refers to, as you were saying, to specific use cases which over time were more or less always the same, or at least with the same drivers. Users have needs that IT cannot cover quickly enough, or doesn't understand well enough, or for whatever reason, users were always a bit frustrated. They wanted to take the thing into their own hands, and they figure out a way to have access to this knowledge and to be able to create their own tools. Over time, the coding expertise was still a science, but the tools have developed and became more and more user friendly. Initially, they shifted from a pure text based to a bit of GUI based, and then with some accelerators, and then they describe it as 4th-generation language. Again, they try to make the visual aspect more prominent and more accessible to the end user, and then it become more common names with Axel, XS, VBA, where technologies which were, I would say, the dream of the end user and the nightmare of the IT department, because they observe the proliferation of multiple applications, some of them very sophisticated, across the IT landscape. And now, I mean, there's a formal recognition of this kind of use case and needs where you have dedicated tools which are addressing specifically this challenge, in order to be able to offer, I would say, non-pure IT specialists a way to address successfully those challenges. That's where now you have this explicit category of tools, which is called the low-code platform, which could either be dedicated to a specific area, sometime on the front, on the end of the mobile platform, or for some of them, really addressing the whole stacks, and enabling the creation of very complex and sophisticated application.
Well, actually, they are called low code, no code. So does that mean that some are really, they don't even require any code whatsoever?
So yes, and I mean the latest iteration make it even closer to this definition. Initially, the low code was more referring to a more graphical way to capture the business logic that was required by the user or by the designer of the solution. And as we will discuss later on, now there are cases when you can even just talk or draw your requirements and share them directly to the system, and they will be able to interpret it, and as we see, more and more successfully. So, but I don't want to spoil it from the start. But
No.
As we will see in the discussion with Davy, it's less and less science fiction. And the more we look at it, the more we are starting to getting closer to this ideal that we had in mind a long time ago.
It's not a spoil, it's an incentive to continue listening.
Exactly.
So talking about that, so Davy, maybe you can share with us, because you've had a long experience and a long career and a lot of experience in the domain in low code. Maybe can you share with us, give some concrete example of its evolution over the years? Maybe you have a couple anecdotes on the capability of the tool and the use cases that you saw addressed by the tools over the years.
Yes. If we look to what we now call it in Microsoft Power Platform, that is not just created out of the blue. It's really now a platform that we have that is grown out of something that we called earlier Microsoft Dynamics. We had that Microsoft Dynamics, and in Microsoft Dynamics, in that tool around 2005, 2006, people could manage what they called their customers. It was called the CRM, Customer Relationship Management System. But later on, we saw it at many organizations and with many customers that they didn't only manage their customers. They managed sometimes internal candidates, or they use it as a relationship for what else other than a customer. And then we see that on the market that Dynamic CRM was changed in something that was called XRM, a tool that allows you to manage a relationship for whatever you want. So that was the first building block, the first step where the platform was not only used for that initial use case, that customer, but was already the basic building blocks for you as a customer to customize and modify it. But not only that, if we also look to the history of the platform themselves, think about 2006, 2007, when I was working in that technology it was a local installation. It was something that you need to install, at that time still with a few compact discs, onto a server somewhere in that organization. The next step was then, okay, the internet was more used in organizations, and they wanted that local installation to get connected with the cloud. That's what we called the internet-facing period, where applications were positioned to really the outside world, but only for internal people, of course. The next step was they don't want anymore that local installation. They lift and shifted the whole configuration more into the cloud. New companies, they then opened data centers, and then they told to the customer, please come with us. It's more secure, it's more safe. We will take care of your whole infrastructure. And that was the second step. We saw the lift and shift from the service, the data, and the application more into a data center, into the cloud. Later on, Microsoft also brought that own application as a package, as a customer, as a service that you could have or rent as a customer directly with Microsoft. And that was also the beginning of a little bit the birth of Microsoft Power Platform. It is growing out of that dynamic space where you now have a building block, an environment where you can configure what you want, model your own data structure that you need, and build applications with it, around it, and on top of it. So that is one area how the Power Platform, or the low-code and no-code, has been grown into what it is on today. But also in another way, if you look to all the journeys over the year in the Power Platform, in the beginning, there was just a few tools. Think about Microsoft Power BI, where we brought analytical tools towards your data that you easily could build your own reports. And I still remember that Power BI was one of the first tools where a company or IT allowed the business to create the reports by themselves, because they recognized how easily now it was for IT to just give the tool and the license to the business, and the business, they built their own reports. They know all the KPIs that they wanted to have, and there was no need anymore to describe it and to define it, hand it over to a function analyst, then to a technical developer, and then build it, and then maybe come back with a few bugs. But it was not only that Power BI. We also had later on the Power Automate. That was converted from the old initial Dynamics 365 processes, where we brought in connectors, the easily way to connect your business process flow towards many other services that you maybe have. So you see that low-code and no-code journey, not only on the application or on the infrastructure, but also on the different tools that we have. And even if you look on today, and I think Xavier just mentioned it, with the latest introduction of Copilot and the whole generative AI, we see the whole shift from that low-code space really to a no-code space. And so if you also look, it opens the door to more people, more business people that can maybe build their own applications or build their own automations. But it's not only for that low-code and no-code area. We cannot forget that the platform is there as well for pro developers. Sometimes they can use that low-code component as well in professional or in enterprise critical applications. Why not? And that's where I see really also the value of that low-code and no-code platform, and why we see that immense growth of the usage, not only within Microsoft.
Very, very interesting. Thank you, Davy. Now I ask Xavier. Davy already mentioned some of the advantages of low-code, no-code, but I would like to ask about the lessons we've learned so far, and that goes also for the advantages, of course, but also the limitations of low-code, if there are any.
But I would tend to concur with Davy when he said that it's you have more and more use cases. It's not only about citizen developers. It could be an accelerator also for a pro developer. I mean, those tools now are more capable, definitely. We've seen also quite a few joining this area of the market, like the Mendix OutSystem, Appian. They are all competing for this kind of area. It's true also that the Microsoft ecosystem is quite unique because it's really an ecosystem. It's not only a low code solution, and that's very important to get back to the history and to trace it back on how it started, because it also gives some indication where it makes sense, or at least the prerequisite. What I mean by that is that, as Davy mentioned, is that it was initially related to the CRM platform and the ERP. Why? Because there was a series of components which were already available. There were integration, there were APIs, there were guidelines which are available. So it was a pretty safe sandbox to allow end user to play with the existing building blocks. So that's why it's important to understand properly what low code could be again a good candidate for, and what are the prerequisites to be successful. So except some very technical aspect like very low latency, high speed trading platform that we sometimes would say, wow, probably not the best use case from a pure technical perspective. Most of the common challenges we see in the business area could possibly be addressed with a low-code platform, but you need to understand correctly what are the use cases you are considering, what are the key characteristics in terms of volume, security, integration, UI, and then you can decide which are the tools which could make sense, what are the prerequisites, and then you can progressively adopt such a platform and address more and more complex use cases. And you need to create a safe environment, because, IT remains complex. And if you expose the end user with all this complexity, then you need to have IT specialists. And it's not simply making the pure coding easier. If you don't know how to scale a tool that works nicely with the two colleagues in the office, but then if you deploy it to a few thousand of people, then some low-code environments are capable to do so, some of us don't. So that's why it's important to look at it at the very beginning, not to be surprised, to be very happy with what you have been developing, and then when you want to deploy it, no, that's not something we can do, and you need to redo it again because it was not chosen for such a situation at the beginning. And we see that quite often. Solutions which are created or selected for a specific purpose, they are deployed successfully for a couple of use cases. Wow, let's deploy it for all the rest, and we don't ask any additional question of, are they still the most relevant and suitable tool set for these additional use cases? Sometimes it's the case because they have similar profile, those use cases, but very often we see users getting much more ambitious, much more sophisticated, and for some tools or practices, we realize they don't scale and they don't grow properly, and they are very disappointed.
So we should also avoid creating tools just for the sake of creating tools that will end up in a...
That's the governance aspect, and it's very important, because when you give a tool to anyone without any kind of guidance, you will have, especially for common use cases, you will have 20 times the same kind of tool, which is more or less the same but not identical, and then it's not because it's easier to create that eventually if you have 10 teams which are maintaining similar tools, you have no gain than to have a central tools maintain once. So that's why it's important also to monitor what is being done, how it's being done, to be able to I would say introduce synergies as early as possible. Sometimes you could realize, you two are working on something pretty similar. Maybe you could bring the team together. Maybe we can try to put at least all the ideas together. So that's why it's important to be able to track and to monitor. And I think beside the improvement in the way to express the requirement with the bots and so on, that's a big difference between, I would say, the low-code platform for standalone user and corporate low-code platform, because they really provide governance tools which help to define components, reusability, access rights, API, to be able to describe them and to have catalogs that help to find the right components, not to reinvent the wheel. That's not something which is specific to low-code, but any kind of large-scale development will face this kind of challenges at some point in time. So that's where I think that's part of the maturity journey of those platforms. And you see now that there are quite a few which are capable to address those use cases.
I like what you said about business and IT working together, because that links back to our previous episode where IT's role is changing from just a service provider to having a more active role and more kind of business partner role.
Working hand in hand.
Exactly.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, I really agree with what Xavier was telling. And when I talk about governance as well with all the customers that I do, I almost say the same. If we look, what are the typical use cases that we see in the Microsoft Power Platform? I sometimes see it as a kind of a pyramid, a triangle with 3 layers. And the bottom layer is what we are calling the personal productivity, where people use that platform to automate their own work, to maybe have a Power Automate flow that take attachments out of an email for a certain customer and save it in a SharePoint folder. Very easy, small automations, or maybe even applications that I just built for my own, or maybe I can share it with 1 or 2 colleagues if they are not well in IT. That is the personal productivity space. The middle layer is what we call typically the business applications, or the medium layer. Here, still built by somebody from the business, but maybe sometimes looked from within IT. Is everything doing well? And maybe they assist us in that fusion team where business and IT can maybe work together. And here we talk maybe about applications still in one area, one business department, one business unit, but shared with more than a few users, but still not a critical application. If that application has an issue, the organization is still able to work as they expected to work. A few examples here. Think about HR. How many use cases can we not find in HR? A good example is a holiday request. I can raise a holiday request, and then my manager needs to approve it. I can automate that approval. Once he approves, I get a notification that my holiday is approved. But automatically, maybe they book an appointment in my agenda so that it's blocked for other ones that they can see. But you can go even further. I have seen with customers that they then looked on that day for all the booked meetings and informed that people, look, Davy will not be that day. He is on holiday, or he will not be able to join, and then I will decline all those meetings, internal or external, with the customers. And even the day before I go on holiday, I get a notification on my cell phone that tells me, hey, Davy, if you want, I can put on your out of office. And it generates for me as well my out of office, which I was forgotten. So you see how easily maybe those use cases can be. And then there is maybe a chatbot that I can then talk with. If I'm sick, that I can say, hello, I'm not able to come to work today, and I send the notes through a chatbot, or think about a lunch request that need to be cancelled. All that small automation, that is what we are referring to in the business applications. Typically HR, logistics, legal, all those departments can really have a lot of benefits of small applications. And then we have the critical applications, really applications built and owned by somebody of IT. And yes, in that low code and no code, there is maybe a space for critical applications. Not always that much, because as Xavier was mentioning, sometimes when we look into critical applications, we need a lot of what we call capacity. We're going to handle thousands and thousands of flows, emails. And yes, the Power Platform can handle that, or a low-code and no-code platform can handle it. But sometimes here, a real pro developer jumps in and do it different. It's not bad. I will not say. I also will not say it's not good, but it's a different way. And it me thinking about a few years ago when I was still a developer and I was learning the .NET framework. People told me who was programming in C++ or VB6 or whatever it was on that moment, oh, we will never go in that .NET. It's then working with modules, and you don't have the own freedom. But if you look today, it's almost everything that has been programmed, especially in the Microsoft space, is with .NET. It's an evolution. And even if I would go earlier in time, but I was not then working in IT, if you think about the mainframers or the assembly persons who write their own programs still in assembly, and then somebody was telling, oh, I will do it in C++, this assembly guy maybe was saying, I control my memory much, much better. And that's true. But is it maybe needed that I, as a programmer, still are responsible for everything and control my own memory and what's going in and going out? No, it's about bringing business value, bringing value to the organizations. And maybe we're going to allow that management being done by the application. And that's a little bit the same with that low-code, no-code. It will not replace IT for sure. IT will be there. We will still have that pro-development applications for sure. But in some use cases, maybe we will say, okay, we agree with what a low-code and no-code platform can offer. And that's maybe enough for us to reach our value. So why would we then not embrace it and use it? And as a final example, one of the use cases I've built in that shop floor automation I mentioned earlier is the replacement of, or the automation of a shift handover. And if I then looked in the plant how they did it, it was by having whiteboards with paper A4 pages with magnets, and they colored it each day. If there was an incident, it was an orange, and on a bad incident, it was red, and otherwise it get green, with 3 different markers. And if they have luck, the marker was working well, and they colored each day. And on the end of the month, somebody picked up that form. They shipped it to a central department. That central department typed it over. They proposed an output, a report, but you can imagine how long it takes before you get the result. And so now, that's a good example. We just easily replaced that single A4 application or process with an application. And so now, when they do a shift handover and they press that button on the touchscreen to indicate if it's green, orange, or red, in less than 2 minutes later, even less than 1 minute later, the whole organization can see it in their own reports. So you bring everything closer to each other. You bring really everything into that single global space and look to the value. And that is, I think, most important if you look, how will you use that low code, bring business and IT together, and they can build nice value for you as an organization.
Yeah, I think it's a great insight. And there's something you said in there that caught my attention a bit, and I'll loop in the next question, which is a bit of a provocative but on purpose question, to which I have partially the answer, but I'm still happy to hear your cut on this. You mentioned replacing IT, and you also mentioned at the beginning ChatGPT and Bing Chat, and with all this new generative AI and chats coming up everywhere, will, let's say, Gen AI be the end of low code or as a whole, or maybe just a new beginning?
It's a good question. First of all, what Microsoft offers, the GPT and the Azure OpenAI, is embracing that language model. And what it means is, it is bringing AI, generative AI. We can understand a language context, and out of that language context, we can propose information. Will it replace low code and no code? No, it will go hand in hand. And that's also why Microsoft called their service Copilot. It's not autopilot. It's not that the Copilot will replace me and will do what I want to do. No, Copilot is a kind of service that Microsoft will bring you, and not only Microsoft, you will see it with other vendors as well, as a kind of co-driver that is helping you and is waiting for you to support you. A little bit as some people, colleagues was laughing with it. You can see it a little bit like Clippy 2.0. For the people who still remember that Clippy in the old Word 6 and 97 versions, that jumped up and was knocking on your screen and asking, how can I help you?
We remember.
You still remember it. It's still a little bit the same, but now it's more intelligent. What it can do and will do, he will translate your business language. He will understand your own speaking or written language for now, later on probably speaking. So you just can describe your needs in your own language, and he will help you take over those technical capabilities. A good example is I can, or maybe I need to format a date time. I have it in an old format coming from a SharePoint list, and the business want to report me in Teams in a complete different format. We all know bringing one date format into another can be quite complex. Now easily you can ask it to a generative AI model, look, this is my input, that's my output, and he will look for you what is the formula that you need in that area, in that technology. If it's in Power BI, it's a different formula than in Power FX and whatever. So it helps you to work better with the tools. And yes, you can now describe, as Xavier already mentioned, you can describe just with your own vocabulary a flow that you want. For example, when I receive an email from a customer, then take that attachment and save it into a SharePoint. He will understand that. And he will give you already the building blocks that are needed for that automation, so that you don't need to do it anymore yourself. And if even what is provided is not yet good enough, no problem. Copilot can also understand changes that you want. Think about, I think we all played hopefully already with GPT. You see, it's not just a single prompting. It's you can reprompt and reprompt again and again to tweak that conversation. And that's a little bit the same that Copilot will do. It is that prompting that he will give you where you can use your own language to provide instructions to the service, and he will then do the technical implementations. So what will it bring? As I mentioned earlier, it will, for me, replace that low code with no code. It will make sure that for starting with small and easy implementations you want to do with that Power Platform, you don't need anymore first to look into 3, 4, 5 trainings, or you don't have to Bing anymore for some formulas that you maybe need. No, you just can, and on that moment, go to the Copilot and ask him what you want. And will it replace everything? No, for sure not. I think it's the same question that people asked 5 or 10 years ago, when we saw the spelling checkers coming in. Will then people not be dumb, and will they then able to write themselves without a spelling checker? Yes, we will. Yes, we can. And is it always perfect without a spelling checker? With some people, yes. With other people, not. So that is the same, I think, now with that Copilot. It is an assistant there for you to help. You can use it. It is there. But if you can do it without, you don't have to use it. Because sometimes people think that now with that Copilot and even with GPT, are we going to ask it everything and it can do everything what we want? No, it's still an AI model that can provide something, which is already very good, but still we are the drivers. We are controlling the directions ourselves.
So let's see what the future holds. And actually, Xavier, what do you think that future might look like? How far can we go with the low code, in your view?
So far, we're already going pretty far. At least we are on the brink of something new and very interesting. But what is also interesting in what Davy was saying is that we're still at this stage of user has a problem, he can discuss the problem, he has a solution. If you have 10 users, they may have 10 problems, we may have 10 solutions. But unfortunately, a heap of solutions could be a problem if we don't pay attention to that. That's why there are still some categories of roles which still make sense to be more transversal, because for the moment, the bots or the copilot, whatever they are named, they don't have this big picture. They are still limited to the context of the counterpart. So they are not addressing the challenges like enterprise architecture. They are not giving the whole picture for the whole organization. So that's why, I mean, in the scale that Davy was giving at the beginning between the individual automation and then departmental automation, and then there was the enterprise-wide automation. And for that one, you need to have interaction with people who have this transversal view. And as long as you remain in this, I automate my problem, I automate the problem of me and my two colleagues, that works. But at some point, you will need to have people who have this transversal view in order to be able to put up together a transversal solution, which is able to plug into the different aspects and existing technologies. And for me, that's one of the limitations that we have for the moment, and that helps to have this function in the organization to allow for a smoother adoption of the low code. Another important aspect is the information governance, because those bots will become more and more capable. They will become smarter. They will start to know your organization, but they will digest whatever they have access to. And that's why it's also important to be sure that they only have access to what they should have access. It's not a new problem, but it was less of a it's less of a problem when you are only humans playing with the usual directories in their own repositories, and they don't care or they don't realize that they actually have access to much more because the security has not been tightened. But if you start to have a bot which can not only interact with the user but also scan the resources made available to I was wondering to him, to her, to it. I don't
Exactly.
even know if there's gender for a bot, but at least whatever the bot has access to, you may have also surprises, and some more confidential data could be used or disseminated unwillingly. So this aspect of the not only information security but really the information governance to identify which are the assets, what are the audience or the group which are entitled to see them. That's also something that still needs to be provided and added to a successful ecosystem, so that it can actually grow with the low code and all the support of the smarter and smarter bots that will be made available. At least for the moment, these are some of the aspects where I see some limitation. How long those limitations will remain valid, we'll see.
Yeah, because things change super fast.
Absolutely, it's really a day-to-day activity to monitor the evolution of the Gen AI and the application to automation.
So we'll probably have a follow-up episode in a few months or 1 year or two, who knows? Christopher, do you have one last question?
Yes, one last question. And for this one, I'll ask you both to try and be brief, because we have two passionate guests today. So there's
for a very interesting topic.
Very interesting topic. So I'll ask both of you to share with our listeners maybe your advice and key message or takeaway that you want them to remember. Maybe one sentence or three keywords, let's say. I don't know, Davy, if you want to start.
Well, I think the key message is embrace it. Use it wisely. And especially if you look to the Microsoft Power Platform, I want to repeat what Xavier already mentioned. Think about it as a whole platform. It's not the individual products. It's really working everything nicely together. See it as like with Office. It's really the whole suite that is really here for you to help and to bring value. And that's the last one. It's all about value, focusing on what is and how easily can we bring value in the organization. And if you would not do anything, think about the cost of delay. But that's maybe for another session then.
I would say those tools, and especially the one augmented with Gen AI, they are an accelerator. They are leveling the playing field. But as you already said, it doesn't mean you can give the keys to anyone without control. So, and without educating them properly. So I think that would be the advice is technology is there. It's not science fiction anymore. So it's more how you are going to adopt it, how you are going to progressively making sense out of it. And that's why it's important to embrace it and to test it, as they were saying, but also provide the appropriate safeguards so that it doesn't hurt too much, just like any learning journey.
I think that was one sentence, a long sentence. Thank you so much, Xavier. And Davy as well. It was a pleasure having you.
Always a pleasure to visit you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks for having me here.
And that's all for today. This is Tech Talk, technology made simple over a cup of coffee. Don't miss out on any future episodes by hitting subscribe. Thank you for listening, and until the next episode.